Sup, murderous stalkers, I'm the Comics Kid 2099, and as always, I'm here to talk about an episode of Superman the Animated Series. Today, I will be talking about the episode Target, so if you haven't seen the episode, go do so or suffer the spoilers in this quick plot synopsis. At an award ceremony for reporters, Lois Lane wins the award right after she receives a mysterious note that says, "You win, you die." She goes through several near-miss assassination attempts and is saved by Superman at every turn. Who could it be? The police captain who hates Lois because her police corruption article cost him a promotion? The overly rude, jealous coworker we've never seen before? Nope, it's the guy whose whistleblowing was invaluable to Lois in her article on LexCorp. Once our baddie is discovered, the day is once again saved thanks to Superman. Cue credits. So while we know that Lois Lane isn't going to actually die in a cartoon aimed at children, this episode is still able to maintain tension pretty consistently throughout the episode, and in ways that aren't necessarily connected to Lois's safety during the assassination attempts. First, there's a level of tension when you're trying to figure out the culprit trying to kill Lois before the episode reveals their identity. That kind of thing always keeps you on the edge of your seat, or at least it does for me. And then another example has Clark Kent in the out-of-control car with Lois, both of them about to be driven off the road to their deaths, or at least so the would-be killer thinks. Of course, we know that Clark is invulnerable, or pretty close to it, so he isn't in any danger. But then there arises a new sense of tension from that moment. How is Clark going to get out of a moving vehicle so that he can save the day as Superman, all without arousing Lois's suspicions that he is Superman? Well, he does it pretty easily, actually, but you don't know that it will be that easy when watching the episode. Like I say, the episode does a really great job at keeping the tension going. Now, the episode does pull a few fast ones on us in trying to throw us off the trail of the real bad guy, but this isn't the worst example of that kind of thing happening in the DC animated universe. Compare this to the Mask of the Phantasm movie, and I think this does a better job of trying to make us think that it's a few other candidates while not going out of its way to make us think that it isn't the person that it actually is, if that makes any sense. It gives us a few clues in the first act, but doesn't draw attention to those clues. Then it gives us a few possibilities to ruminate on before returning to the actual culprit and reminding us of the clues it gave us in Act 1. You know, like a good mystery is supposed to do. I do find it a little suspicious that in A Little Piece of Home, when a LexCorp employee leaks information about kryptonite to Lois, it is heavily implied that Lex has that employee killed. But here, when Lois's source Leitner leaks information to Lois, he is still allowed to live. Sure, the damage was already done, so maybe you could argue that Lex then had no reason to kill Leitner, or maybe you could say that doing so would only draw further attention to Lex and his company. But I call shenanigans on both of those explanations. Lex, at least the version that I'm familiar with in the post-crisis comics from the late 80s and early 90s, which this series heavily draws from, is the kind of guy who wouldn't let an affront to him and his company like this go unpunished, even if the damage was already done. He would find a way to punish Leitner, and he'd be pretty subtle about it, so that there would be no suspicion on him or his company when the deed was done. Sure, Leitner needs to be alive so that the plot of this episode can happen, and he can be the culprit, but it still seems inconsistent with the picture of Lex that we've had painted for us so far in this series. I also think it'd be nice if we could see some of the characters introduced in this episode again later in the series. The overly rude, jealous coworker doesn't add much, so it's no big loss that we never see him again, but the possibly corrupt police captain, it'd be nice if we could see him working with Sawyer and Turpin in episodes that they appear in. Sure, police corruption isn't necessarily a topic that we need to explore in Superman. Personally, I'm more interested in wacky science fiction hijinks than something as mundane as police corruption. But if you're going to introduce this guy, and just as a red herring so we don't suspect Leitner, then at least show him again when we see the other cops we've already introduced. Turpin's a bit of a crabapple. What does he think of this other grouch? Is the possibly corrupt police captain good at his job despite possible corruption in his closet? These are some questions I think it would have been interesting to see answered, but I can see how that would be difficult to do in 20-minute episodes and when we've already got an almost crowded cast of supporting characters already. And that's about all that I have to say about this episode. A pretty good one in my humble. But what did you guys think of the episode and of my review? Let me know in the comments, and in the meanwhile, I will see you guys next week with other videos, including another review of an episode of Superman the Animated Series. See you then.